Well, as you heard, the threat from the regime of Kim Jong a top concern at the summit. President Trump meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping yesterday. They did address trade, but at that meeting, the president directly pressed the issue of North Korea and tried to push the President Xi to finally try to do something to rein in the regime.
As far as North Korea is concerned, I know that we'll have eventually success. May take longer than I'd like, may take longer than you'd like, but there will be success in the end, one way or the other.
Ambassador John Bolton joins us, former U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, Fox News contributor, senior fellow at the Merit Enterprise Institute, and chairman of the Gatestone Institute here in New York. Well, Ambassador, just heard the president say it. There will be success one way or the other. So what way do you predict would actually work?
Well, I think the Chinese have got to wake up to the fact that we've got a different kind of president than the last three who have been content to try and work with China to pressure North Korea. This is a policy we've had for nearly 25 years. It has failed utterly for 25 years. And I think the Chinese need to know that because of the progress North Korea has made, we're a lot closer to the use of military force. And if everybody wants to avoid military force, as they say, there has to be another answer to North Korea. I think the way you end the threat of North Korea's nuclear program is by ending North Korea, by reuniting the two parts of the divided peninsula.
But how do you actually achieve that without, you know, a military situation that could just be totally catastrophic?
Well, I think you say to China, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. The easy way is you agree that it's in Chinese interest to reunify the peninsula because as long as North Korea continues to make progress toward nuclear weapons, it's providing a powerful incentive for Japan to get nuclear weapons on its own. There are things we can work out with China that won't threaten them. There don't need to be American troops on the Yalu River. We can help them avoid a catastrophic flow of Korean refugees into China, which they don't want. But, you know, time is on the side of the nuclear proliferator here. So when the president says it may take longer than we like, we don't have longer.
I'm sorry, you say one issue obviously could be sanctions to try and make it the easier way. We just sanctioned one bank, that Daedong Bank. It's a small bank. How about the Bank of China? And really putting the screws on the trading partners of North Korea so that they would get the message to stop it.
Yeah, let me be as clear about this as I can. Pinprick sanctions against China to get them to pressure North Korea will fail. Will fail. Now, massive sanctions against China might get their attention, but I think it'd be very unlikely that the president's economic advisors would agree to that. The sanctions route isn't going to cut it with China. I think that's why, ultimately, if you don't persuade China it's in their interest to reunite the two Koreas, you get much closer to the use of military force. And what happens then? Severe conflict on the Korean peninsula, massive flows of refugees into China, American troops on the Yalu River. That's the hard way for China. So if you want to do it the easy way, the best way is to try and do it diplomatically now, have a structured elimination of the North Korean regime and a reunification of the two Koreas.
I mean, you talk about sanctions and China, you know, at the UN they support the resolutions, and they have over the past 10 years since the first that 2006 nuclear test. But take a look at what's written in foreign policy, you know, about China. I mean, you can't trust them. Foreign policy says this: China has blown past a UN-imposed ceiling of coal imports, purchasing twice that amount. China then shrugged off a requirement to report its North Korean coal imports to the UN Security Council Sanctions Committee. Get this: when U.S. and Japanese diplomats pressed their Chinese counterpart for an explanation, the Chinese diplomats said nothing. China has a pattern of showing goodwill, but has shown less commitment to enforcing those measures. So how do you change their behavior? That seems totally impossible.
Well, I think that shows why the continuation of the past policies is doomed to failure. And it's not just China that's at fault here. Russia clearly is as well in terms of missile technology and possibly other things. That's why this approach of trying to change the North Koreans' behavior has failed for 25 years and will fail going forward. You can't change their behavior. They are determined to have deliverable nuclear weapons. The only thing that will protect the United States, Japan, South Korea, and our other friends is to eliminate the North Korean regime. It's not their behavior that's the problem. It's their existence that's the problem. And the way you do it, most likely peacefully, is reunification.
Well, in terms of reunification, I mean, you've got to get other nations to go on board, but how is that even possible? I want to show you some pictures. Here's a series of Kim Jong-un in his Mercedes. I mean, the guy's got a big black Mercedes. So how do you deal with this when many nations trade with North Korea? They use their diplomatic embassies and the diplomatic offices for trade, and some car dealer, you know, in Germany probably sold them that Mercedes, and they're not cutting them off on almost anything.
Yeah. Well, China accounts for the overwhelming percentage of total external trade with North Korea. That's why their acquiescence in reunification is absolutely critical. And Kim Jong-un better hope, if it looks like that's going to happen, that he gets out of North Korea as fast as he can, or he'll make the fate of Nicolae Ceausescu when communism in Romania ended look like a party by comparison to what the North Korean people will do.
Wow. You know, from Mussolini to Ceausescu, you're right, the dictators so often fall, and fall hard. Ambassador John Bolton, thank you for your insight, as always, on Sundays, and we will, of course, continue to report on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric.